But you said at the outset that there are people who do succeed in the market because they have inside information.
Right.
It feels like there's a lot of that.
There is.
Yeah. How does that work?
So I think there's different levels of it, right? There's like the full-on criminal stuff like you saw in the movie Wall Street with Gordon Gekko, right? Where like people are actually paying people in moles and stuff like that to get, information that's not public, paying off directors, having inside links to the company or law firms that are doing deals, right? That happens for sure, and people do get in trouble from time to time and go to jail, right? But
Martha Stewart.
Right, exactly, right? But she was like kind of, a fall person. I mean,
she sure was.
So people did a lot worse than Martha Stewart, right? I mean,
why'd they put her away?
It's hard to say because she's, famous and she's a big target, and it kind of sucks when you're famous and a big target, and they want to come get you, right? Especially if some of your views aren't that popular, they want to come after you, right? So, but that's sort of the cliched type of insider trading where they're just literally buying and getting moles, and that's highly illegal. Then there's the softer side of it, which is where these big hedge funds have these like analytical firms that are getting like research that's inside research. So like, for example, they're like, I had a friend who was a very big short seller, right? And he actually had like people waiting outside of a warehouse, counting the number of trucks that were leaving the warehouse to try to like, you get it to see how, are they really shipping the amount of goods? They're doing this deep type of research, which sometimes crosses over into inside information.
So what is the line? I mean, you're allowed to be informed.
You're allowed to be informed, but theoretically you should not be in possession of information that is non-public. Everyone's supposed to have access to the same information at the same time to make a fair market, right? And generally speaking, it's true for everybody, all the average investors, but there are certainly people on Wall Street. I mean, you'd be naive to think that, an analyst that has special relationships that's doing the investment banking deal. So if someone raises, $500 million for a company, you tell me the CEO and the owner of that firm are not like having little conversations, little inklings here and there. So I'm sure that's happening. That's much more difficult to prove. So it's a lot of it is buried under like, guidance and financial reports. So they'll issue an analyst report, right? And, the analyst report will give sort of plausible deniability for why they think a stock is going up or down, right? But even then, I mean, I think that's difficult to prove, which is why you don't hear a lot of those cases.
No, the SEC doesn't seem to bring many.
Well, the SEC, I have a whole history of the SEC in the book. The SEC is a ridiculous organization. So it was conceived, listen, the first chairman was Jack Kennedy, or Joe Kennedy, old Joe, the original Wolf of Wall Street, right? So like,
the bootlegger.
From the beginning, it was set up with a two-tiered system where the big firms basically were protected, right? And, when they got in trouble, they did things so egregious that it was undeniably egregious, they'd pay a small fine and move on, right? Which is why like Goldman Sachs, for example, right? Now, Goldman Sachs serves a vital function to the U.S. economy, and they're also behind every great crime or the biggest crimes that are out there, including my movie. That was, the Wolf of Wall Street was financed by these Malaysians, right? The 1MDB fund, that scandal, that was just coincidentally. And who was the banker that paved the way for that? Goldman Sachs. Out of there, I think it was the Malaysia or Singapore office. They had a banker there that provided the funding and, got double or triple the normal fees for doing it. And that money got siphoned off. That's classic Wall Street. So on one hand, they create massive value. On the other hand, they rape and pillage the village. And it's the average investor and the average person that bears the brunt of that. The bailouts and subpar returns. So,
well, just to follow up on the Wall Street investment firm, information firms, research.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone uses those, correct?
Hedge funds are very much using them. So they've gotten in trouble, though, in the past.
In some cases, they pay employees or former employees of companies to talk about what's happening inside the company.
Right.
And that's very common.
Yes, that's same with lobbyists. And it's like,
so how is that not insider trading? I've always wondered.
Well, again, it's not. If someone gives you an overall, sense of what's going on, that's like nothing that's not out in the public domain, but it's sort of like an insider's perspective versus information on like, are sales going down? Is there a problem with manufacturing that's not public, right? So that's when it crosses over the line, and it's a gray area, right? But it's very common in hedge funds to use these research firms that go out there and get non-public information. And there's a very fine line, like a drug trial. Like there's a drug trial going on. Like, how do you know how the drug trial is performing? Well, if you're imagine calling up all the people or interviewing people that are in the drug trial and trying to figure out yourself, or people that are intimately involved with administering the placebo studies or double-blind studies, they're all over that stuff.
It appears that members of Congress consistently beat the S&P 500 in their personal investments.
Nancy Pelosi.
And a lot of others,
right?
And Pelosi especially.
But she's the famous one.
Yeah. So how does that, is Nancy Pelosi, do you think, a stock picking genius?
No, she has to be operating on information that's non-public, or there's not.
Wouldn't that make her a criminal?
Yeah, but look at Joe Biden right now. I mean, look what's going on right now. Like this. Listen,
do you think he's a good stock picker?
Joe Biden? No, I think he's great at laundering money, though.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly,
apparently.
From what I've seen right now, I don't get it. Like, just imagine if it was Trump who was president.
Yeah.
But every single day in the front page of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and every other publication would be like $40,000 check or $20,000 check from his brother. Like, it'd be game over. Cries for impeachment.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be like the world falling down. He's in China's pocket. But it's like we're living in an alternative universe right now where people in power, especially on the left, right, can operate almost with impunity. And Pelosi's a perfect example. She's not the only one, but it's inconceivable that someone could have that high return in the market when everyone else can't do it. So what's the edge? The edge is she knows key legislation. And also, maybe someone's whispering in her ear, okay, because, they want to be on her good side, right? So it's hard to prove.
So, but it's just prima facie, though. So if what you're saying is true, and that is that the most sophisticated people in the world can't beat the S&P average,
right,
then any member of Congress, and I think they are on average dumber than the population,
especially the career politicians,
for sure.
Yeah,
there's no possibility they could do that with that inside information.
No, it's not possible. But again, so how do you go proving that, right? They have to issue subpoenas. And listen, I think that in this case, the solution is they shouldn't be allowed to trade these people.
Yes.
They should not be allowed to trade. It's insane that they're allowed to. And, as you said, it's prima facie, right? If it looks like shit, smells like shit, well, guess what?
Yeah.
It's shit. And that's, or it's bullshit in this case, right? So listen, she's done incredibly well in an area where like the most professional investors struggle to even match the index. So somehow she's doing 3 times as well. I don't know.
Why is no one ever taking that seriously? I mean, this is like a feature of internet memes, but I don't know. I mean, don't we have an SEC to look into that? I mean,
SEC's not going to look into that sort of stuff because they don't want to make an enemy because they're funded. Who funds them? They're funded by Congress. The budget's tied to Congress, right? There's a committee it's the Financial Services Committee, right? So that funds the SEC.
But how does it make you feel? I mean, you got in a lot of trouble for fraud.
But I deserved it. So like,
right, but so do they.
Yeah, I know. But like, I never. One thing. Listen, I admit that after 2008, I got a little bit bitter. I was like, you know what? These people have bankrupted the world economy, and no one went to jail. Basically, some one schnook in Germany went to jail.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I said, you know what? That's not really fair. But I don't think it's an empowering way to live. To say just because I went to jail, other people should go too. I think jail's a terrible place, right? And I did my time, and I made the best. I wrote my first book in jail, right? Which turned out to be a great thing. But I learned from that. But I don't then wish it on other people.
How did you? I mean, a lot of people go to jail